All right, it's working. Yeah, we are here. Welcome to Spill the Tea in 15 with La Libre Language Learning. If you are new to this side of life, hi, welcome. My name is Devin, and today you're hanging out in my backyard because it's a friggin' beautiful day. So we're trying something new. I hope you love it. And today's topic is for if you are a proficiency oriented world language teacher, but you would like ideas that are practical that you can use tomorrow in your classroom to get you to that more proficiency oriented classroom that you are striving for, then this is the place for you. Each Wednesday, we go live with some questions that have been submitted by the audience. And so this one is for you on. There are lots and lots of questions in my question bank on how to organize a curriculum if you are moving in the direction of being focused on comprehensible input-friendly strategies. And my number one tip for you, that hands down is so crazy easy. It's not even funny. It will take you very, very little time, probably even less than 10 minutes if you sit down and do it, is this. This number one tip will save you so much time and effort. And it is very simply cut, 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 cut stuff from your teaching list. So whatever you have to teach tomorrow, if you're watching this live, then it's Wednesday. If you're going into class, French, Spanish, Chinese, whatever it may be, and you have a list of things that you would like to talk about with your students, terms that you'd like them to master, or ideas that you'd like them to focus on, cut the list and focus only on the good things. Here's why. The number one problem that I see after working with thousands of teachers on their curriculum and with other organizations with their curriculum too, when it comes to world language, is that everybody's overstuffed. We always have too many things that we're trying to put into one lesson. And that's for a lot of reasons. We feel a lot of pressure as teachers to cover all of these topics. And not only that, but we think that when we give our students more words, especially at the novice level, we get that metaphor very often of filling up the cup, because with ACTFL, especially if you teach in America, there's this image of ACTFL of this pyramid, and at the bottom with novice, low, mid, and high, the idea comes into play very often of the more words that you give them, the faster they will move up the levels. And while it is definitely a volume game at the novice level, there's a lot more truth to quality over quantity than you think. Think of it this way. If you look at the research, students can only bind onto and put into their, not only their long-term memories, but also their linguistic systems and their lexical memory, all that good stuff, up to 10 on average. So for some students less, for some students more, up to 10 new terms at a time. And that means like not even just your lesson, but for if you introduce a new word like, anything, une boisson, for example, en français, a drink, then it's going to take a few times for that to even cement. But not only that, if that's a word that you have in there, that's taking up space in their brains for what they're able to learn that day. And I really mean the term acquire here. That's what they're able to acquire that day for what you're working on in your input focused lesson. So if you're talking about mealtime, then you want to carve that down to only the 10 most essential things that you want students to learn before you move on. So what does this look like? It means that you take a look at, okay, what are the things that I'm actually expected to teach students today? And whether it's a list that you created yourself or a list that you've been given, ask yourself, did each of these terms earn their spot? Because if I only have 10, then you got to start making cuts. Like this is a team, okay? Not, we need to make sure that every single word on that list that you're teaching that day needs to earn its spot. So if you've got words on there for mealtime that, if you have the word meal, like le repas, really, like how often are your students actually going to need that in French? Not that often. And you can verify that by checking in the high frequency vocabulary list for all languages. There's a lot of them available. I believe that there's up to 20 now. And see how often are students actually going to need that in either written or spoken speech. And if the answer is not that much, or because it's on your test, then you either need to revise the test, or if that's not a possibility, make sure that students know it and you teach it right before the test, but don't give it that much emphasis in class, because you know what will make a difference? Je mange. I eat. That's the most important thing that students need at mealtime, or like commander, like I'm ready to order if they're in a restaurant for context. Those words make a lot more impact than maybe, for example, the word boisson, because usually, depending on the context, there are some words that are more important than others. And when you're working with so few, with room in their brains, with novice learners, your input sinks in so much better when, instead of focusing on the amount of words that you can talk about in one day or in one lesson or in one unit, you focus on how much input and how much repetition can I get in this lesson. There's going to be a huge shift that you see in the focus when you go from quantity to quality. Another thing I want you to think about is that many of your vocabulary lists, or even your functional chunks list, or even your verbs list, are really overblown, and simply for the reason that they probably fit a certain trait that you're teaching right now. Like maybe you might be teaching, for Spanish teachers, maybe you're teaching stem changing verbs. They don't need to know all the stem changing verbs. Like some of them don't really occur that often, and some of them are actually pretty confusing. So if you're in the position, which many of us have been in or are in, where you have to teach stem changing verbs, where that happens, you do what you got to do. If you have to teach stem changing verbs, how many of them can you cut? How many of them can you cut? That is the question. It's not if I'm cutting, how many of them can you cut? Any list that you give your students in another language that is completely unfamiliar to them, that is more than 10 words, more than 10 terms, is too much. Anything more than 10 is too much. That is the limit. So this is the number one tip that I have for you to make any lesson better. Anything that you're doing in a world language class is simplify, pare down, cut, use the most high impact terms, verbs, quality functional chunks, whatever you want to call it, but whatever language that you are focusing on that day, make sure that it is high impact, high frequency, high value input, rather than I feel like I need to teach this term, or it's just on my list. Make sure that every word's place on your vocabulary list is justified, because input is the name of the game, and the more students hear words, the better, rather than the more words they get, the better. That will lead to acquisition far more than adding more words into their repertoire. This was your tip for today. At the end of the day, no matter what, the easiest thing that I can tell you to do is cut stuff from your lessons and your lists, whatever it might be, vocabulary, unit, you name it. I hope that that's helpful to you. And I'm encouraging you to, tomorrow, when you look at your lesson plans, see what you can cut. Make sure that every single term deserves to be on your list, because if it doesn't, then it's not serving your students, and it's just adding more stress and more work to your plate anyways. This has been Spill the Tea in 15 with La Libre. We got a nice quick tip for you today, hanging out in the backyard. Hope you loved it. And if you are ready for some more ideas like this that help you move further in your journey to getting more proficiency into your classroom, but with ideas that are practical, then come hang out with me every Wednesday. We do this a lot, but I will see you next time. Ciao for now.